As dawn broke over the verdant hills of Normandy on June 6, 1944, the stillness of the early morning air was shattered by the thunder of artillery. The distant roar echoed across the beaches, reverberating through the hearts of the men who were preparing to carry out the greatest amphibious assault in the history of warfare. It was D-Day, and the fate of Europe hung in the balance. The landings marked the beginning of a grueling campaign to liberate Nazi-occupied France. But on this day, it was not just military strategy on the line, it was the hopes and dreams of countless soldiers. Among them was Sergeant John Bennett, a soldier of the 29th Infantry Division, whose fingers fidgeted nervously against the wooden side of the Higgins boat he sat cramped within, surrounded by fellow soldiers. The vessel rocked violently on the turbulent waves, each jolt a reminder of the treacherous journey ahead. John was just 30 years old, a simple farmer back home in Ohio, with a heart full of love for his wife Mary and their little girl Lucy. Caught between the vastness of the sea and the unknown of the land they were about to assault, John fought to keep his anxiety at bay, remembering the promise he had made to return safely to them. "Keep your heads down, boys," barked Captain Jim McAllister, a seasoned officer whose face was lined with tension and resolve. Beneath his steely exterior, he carried the burden of leadership and the weight of 30 men who trusted him with their lives. "We're almost there. Remember your training. Move fast once we hit the beach." The roaring of the engines intensified, and as the boats neared the shoreline, the sight that met John's eyes filled him with dread. The once pristine sands of Omaha Beach were now a hellscape of fire and chaos. German machine gun nests lined the cliffs, pouring a relentless stream of bullets down upon them. Men were falling around him, some screaming as they were hit, others struggling to stay afloat in the choppy waters. "Go, go, go," Captain McAllister shouted as he shoved the ramp down, exposing the soldiers to a torrent of gunfire. The moment was visceral. The harsh wind carried the acrid scent of smoke and iron, mingled with salt from the ocean, and the cries of the wounded filled the air with an eerie lament. With no time to contemplate the horror that awaited him, John vaulted over the side, plunging into the icy surf. The cold sent shockwaves through his body as he fought to find his footing. Bullets zipped by like angry hornets, and he swam desperately toward the shore, his heart racing with the knowledge that every stroke could be his last. The beach was now a battleground, and all around him, his comrades fell under the merciless assault from above. The gritty sand beneath his feet gradually gave way to the almost reassuring hardness of the pebbles near the waterline. But as John staggered ashore, two men fell just feet away from him, their bodies twitching unnaturally. The stark reality of war had come crashing into his soul. Pushing the horror aside, he stumbled forward, fueled by adrenaline, and instinctively ducked behind a mound of sand. Captain McAllister was already shouting orders, coordinating the chaotic rush of soldiers scrambling for cover. "Get to the bluffs. We need to take them out. Move." He fired his M1 Garand, the sharp crack of the rifle punctuating the air as he pinpointed the German positions, trying to rally the remaining shreds of his men's morale amidst the madness. The world around John blurred as he gritted his teeth and sprinted toward the first cover he could find, a pile of debris left by previous bombardments. He pressed his back against the jagged remnants of the wall and took a moment to collect himself. Around him, the sounds of battle whirled like a cacophony of shouts, grunts, and gunfire, threading together into a horrific symphony. Breathless, he scoured the area for his friends, a knot of despair tightening in his chest as he saw men he had trained alongside faltering, succumbing to terror and the inevitable carnage. But retreat was not an option. With a deep breath, propelled by the thought of Mary and Lucy, John rose again, unable to remain hidden in the chaos. He could see Sergeant Thompson, a stout man with a jovial demeanor, struggling to pull another wounded soldier to safety. John's instincts kicked in. This was the brotherhood they spoke of. He couldn't abandon his own. "Thompson," he yelled, rushing to his side, grabbing hold of the injured man's shoulder. "We need to get him back." They heaved the limp body of Private Allen toward the craters that dotted the beach like the scars of war. Bullets whizzed past them, but their determination surged to the forefront as they worked in tandem, a well-rehearsed maneuver born from months of preparatory drills. It was in these stark moments that John's fears transformed into a ferocious resolve. The tide of battle continued to rise and fall like a tempest. Each minute felt like a lifetime, as waves of soldiers followed in the wake of the leading wave, some hopeful, other trepidatious. Slowly, the assault progressed despite the overwhelming firepower from above, the bold soldiers carrying flamethrowers, heroic enough to strike fear into the German ranks, forged a path inland, and for the first time, a semblance of hope began to bloom in John's heart. Yet tragedy was never far behind. With every inch gained, the price of progress multiplied. A shrill scream erupted from behind him, cutting through the roar of gunfire. John turned, his gaze locking onto a familiar figure, Corporal Harris, who had once shared laughs and stories over rationed meals. Harris had stumbled, blood pouring from a wound on his leg. John sprinted toward him, but before he could reach him, a blinding flash erupted. There was no time to react. The explosive burst disoriented him as it sent dirt and debris flying, and the air thickened with the choking cloud of gunpowder. When the dust settled, John's heart sank as he searched the smoldering wreckage, desperately calling out for his friend. "Harris, can you hear me?" But the only answer was silence, the stark reminder of the relentless cost of conflict contradicting his fervor to survive. Amid the chaos, a cry pierced the noise. Captain McAllister was rallying the men around him. "We're not done yet. We move now. Stay low. Stay with your fire teams. Flank, flank." Driven by the captain's orders and the urgency of their mission, John channeled his grief into action. Together with Thompson and a handful of men, they darted toward the nearest German bunker, seeking the cover of a trench along the cliffs. As they reached the dilapidated fortifications, the sound of guns rose to a deafening crescendo. Through the cracked openings, John could see the enemy scrambling for better positions, the panicked faces marred by sweat and fear. Waves of determination surged through him. This was a moment to channel the rage of loss into something greater. "Let's move," he shouted, leading the charge as he dashed toward the German position, grenades clutched in his fist. Explosions rattled the earth as they lobbed their grenades with precision, hoping for the devastating impact needed to breach the defenses. It was a chaotic ballet of life and death, where every breath was laced with the scent of gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood. As the debris flew, John dove into the bunker with his squad, their rifles barking back instinctively at the enemy. Inside the cramped quarters, fear morphed into panic as one enemy soldier turned, his face a mere shadow in the dark, his rifle raised. With reflexes honed to instinct, John fired first. The shot rang out, a sound that would haunt him for years to come. In that instant, he felt not only the heat of battle but the cold weight of taking a life. As they cleared out the bunker with relentless determination, the sense of victory was intoxicating but bittersweet. The men cheered, fleetingly united in their triumph, yet shadows of loss lingered in their eyes. There was no time to mourn, for the next wave followed suit, and John knew they could not falter now. With dogged resolve, they pushed forward, inching further up the cliffside toward the enemy command post. As the sun began to set, soaking the battlefield in hues of orange and purple, fatigue made way for sheer adrenaline. With every inch gained, they felt the tides of change shift beneath their feet. The Germans, sensing the crumbling resolve of their defenses, began to falter. The tide was turning. Just when it felt like victory was within reach, chaos struck again. The landscape erupted as the Germans launched a final stand, erupting out from the cliffs like an angry hornet's nest. Our soldiers, exhausted and worn, were hit with a torrent of fire. Screams filled the air. Through the chaos, John found himself cornered, separated from Thompson and the remaining squad. Surrounded by uncertainty, he pressed against the earth, the world blurring as he fought to suppress the throbbing dread wrapping around his chest. In that darkness, he recalled the images of Mary and Lucy, memories fueling the waning fire of courage left inside him. He would get back to them. He had to. With a burst of energy, John managed to break free, darting from one pile of rubble to the next until he found himself at a more secure position. His rifle felt heavy in his hands, each round counting down like the beating of his heart. As the mutter of soldiers began to know victory, he understood that chaos organized itself into a bittersweet celebration. But even as they surged toward what felt like victory, tragedy emerged from the shadows. A distant figure emerged against the backdrop of the fading sun. It was Captain McAllister, leading the charge toward the last remaining defenses. Just as victory seemed within reach, a sniper's bullet found its mark. John watched in horror as the captain crumpled to the ground, his body silencing a rallying cry that had emboldened them all. Time seemed to suspend, a moment thick with disbelief and confusion. No, get to him. John's heart pounded as he instinctively dashed towards his fallen commander, adrenaline fueling his urgency. Thompson was already there, applying pressure, but John could see the fading spark in McAllister's eyes. "Keep fighting," the captain gasped, the words barely escaping his lips as John cradled him in his arms, the strength slipping away from his body. "You have to finish this." Forceful grief surged within John, an inconsolable heartbreak. His hand shook as he pressed against the wound, the realization of loss crashing against his chest with insistence.
But the battlefield would not relent, and so he nodded, feigning strength he didn't possess. "Sir, I promise, we'll finish this." With the weight of hope and pain fused into his resolve, John turned back, the officer's face etched forever into his memory. The call of battle surged around him once more as they fought to clear the remnants of resistance. Fueled by loss and a wild sense of determination, John shouted the orders, igniting the fire in the hearts of his fellow soldiers, striding toward what remained of the German positions. With the tide irrevocably in their favor, they charged forward. The Germans were hunkering down under the overwhelming pressure, and the ground shuddered beneath the steady march of men ready to claim their futures or die trying. As darkness fell like a veil over the battlefield, and the echoes of gunfire began to dwindle, the gamble of D-Day solidified into an unspoken truth. The 29th Infantry Division would not falter in the face of adversity. Together they emerged from the ashes, weary and changed forever. The beach, once painted crimson, began to mirror the stars above, calling to those left behind with the promise of an end. In the aftermath, as day melded into night, they gathered what remained of their men. Huddled together amidst the haunting silence punctuated only by the distant echoes of artillery, they felt the weight of loss settle over them, mingling with their tentative triumph. John remembered Captain McAllister's final words, and his heart twisted with an ache unmeasurable. The victory at Omaha Beach was a pivotal moment, a necessary assault upon the fortress of tyranny. But the cost was staggering, and as the sun set over the horizon of the French landscape, the skies bore witness to the sacrifices made. In those solemn hours, John Bennett and his fellow soldiers became more than just the soldiers of the 29th Infantry Division. They became the living legacy of the countless men and women who believed in a brighter tomorrow. As they prepared to regroup and move deeper into enemy territory, John took a moment to breathe. The images of Mary and Lucy flickered in his mind like beacons of hope. They had carved out a significant chapter in the tapestry of war that day. But the fight was far from over. Each one of them had battles ahead, both on foreign soil and within. With every step they took on that sun-drenched sand, they honored their fallen brothers, carrying with them the dreams of the nations they fought for, and above all the dreams of the families waiting patiently for their return. As soldiers turned into liberators, they knew what they carried, the echoes of their pasts and the promise of a future bright with possibility. Each heartbeat was a pledge as they pressed on, reclaiming not just land, but the very essence of their humanity.